program will begin shortly. Launch sequence. Activate. Warning, the following content is not politically correct. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back to the channel today, everyone. I'm Sarah Higdon. This is Transform to Freedom. So we got a lot to talk about today. There's some stuff we want to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about the Olympics, the opening ceremony there. We'll talk a little bit about Kamala Harris, the presidential race, like we always do. But there's some things that I definitely just want to talk just in culture wise. Like some things have been bugging me, and we're going to talk about that too. I have a show, so we're going to talk. I've been holding back some of my comments online because it's frustrating to see. I don't want them taken out of context because of Twitter babble or anything like that. So we're gonna talk about that here where it's on video, and we can actually discuss a little bit more, and you can actually understand, context and where I'm coming from with some of these things, and why I'm frustrated. And why I'm frustrated is, and it's more I'm frustrated with people, mostly people on the right now. It's so interesting being in the position that we're in when you try to see both sides of things. You kind of live in this middle ground, especially as a right-leaning trans person and a libertarian in general. Like we sit in this middle ground, and it's hard to sometimes it's hard to be in this space to where you don't have people that you fully connect with. I will say though, on one of these issues that we're going to talk about in a second, it was nice to see a lot of people start to come around after some of these posts and stuff blew up. But it's just still it's really frustrating to watch, and it's something that I've seen happen over and over and over again, that in reality people are just hurting their own cause. So we'll get into that here in a second, but I do want to bring up, we like to start off the show with a little bit of good news. Usually if there's something in the news that we've talked about before, that we talk about a lot, that has shown to be a good news story on what we've talked about before. And today that is in the UK, in England, the High Court decided that the ban on puberty blockers is lawful. So Christina Buttons had this, so you can go to her page and kind of read up a little bit more on this. She's great when it comes to these types of things, but it's this year the UK put bans and restrictions on puberty blockers. And you can kind of see how this has gone about. Like, so earlier this year, the CAS review said that there was lacking evidence that supported that puberty blockers for under age of 18 with gender dysphoria. So the use of puberty blockers for anybody that's under the age of 18 for the reasons of gender dysphoria, because we always have to caveat that, right? Because precocious puberty is a real thing and a real use in the United States, and it's an FDA approved use for these. Gender dysphoria is not an FDA approved use for puberty blockers. They are used off label. And based off of the CAS review in May, the government introduced an emergency ban on private and European prescribers providing puberty blockers for minors in the UK. And this has kind of started to happen across the world, or across the rest of Europe as well, we're starting to see people take a step back and want to do more research onto whether they are, as the activists like to label them, fully reversible, which most of the data that we see coming out shows that puberty blockers are not fully reversible. And so this is a good thing. And so in July, the High Court in London started to hear the challenge. And just this week, actually today, the court said they dismissed those challenges and said that the emergency ban on puberty blockers is lawful. So that's a win. So we like to look at that type of stuff, get those wins, um, and let's hope we can actually get the data out there on these things. As it stands now, don't support the use of puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones for gender dysphoria under the age of 18. If you are over the age of, like, if you're an adult, you can do whatever you want with your body, but let's get you to adulthood before you make life-altering permanent decisions. Hey, Katie 420, thank you for joining. Hey, Robbie, it's always nice to see you as well. So that's all the good news. We're gonna start with some good news today, like I said, and then we will kind of move into the next into everything that's not so good news. Happy Monday. Okay, so this week, so basically it's starting to look like in cycling, at least in Washington state, cycling has become a women's cycling has become a co-ed sport. So this last week, it was a team competition, and as you can see, there was, in the top 3 positions, 1, 2, 3, there was a trans cyclist in each position, at least one trans cyclist on each team, for this. So the female athletes up there are now saying, like, hey, if we're on a team, I can't win without a male on my team. So basically they are now teaming up with trans athletes to win women's competitions. Eh, so basically, like I said, it's now a co-ed sport as long as the other athlete identifies as trans or identifies as a woman. Which kind of takes us into, now we'll go into a little bit of the Olympics. But there is something that has frustrated me for the last couple of days. Since, and we'll talk a little bit about the Olympic opener, because that was disgraceful. But let's talk about something. If you are a champion of female athletes, what good does it do you by taking a female athlete and then claiming that they are trans? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you're not constantly online like me, here we go. So let's talk about this, because this has me frustrated to no end. People are now bringing up Alona Mar, who is she's a U.S. Olympic rugby player. And simply because she does not have traditional feminine features and body type, people are out here now claiming that she's a man. Watch. What? So this is the video that Terrible posted, and it says Olympic athlete Ilona Maher is being compared to 80s Brooke Shields. What is she doing by posting this? And this is the type of engagement farming that I thought Elon Musk was supposed to be trying to get rid of on Twitter, right? So here. He's like a poem out of shower, out of shower, and he laughs in my Okay, so that's the video that she posted. There are things with this video. I mean, she's built differently from the average female. Now, let me see. But how can you be a champion of female athletes and then in the next breath say that a female athlete that looks like an athlete that is more muscular, maybe not so feminine in features, that they how is it just how are they being deemed as males? How does that help your cause? Because again, there's this whole notion that the whole we can always tell trans people crowd. Does this help your cause? If it's clear you can't always tell, because now you are actually harming the women that you are supposedly on their side. I don't think it works like that. And honestly, because of a lot of this, I just found out who this person is, and she is amazing. She's funny. I mean, if you go follow her on Instagram, she just seems to have such a great personality and an attitude about so much stuff. And so it really, and she is actually the type of body positivity person that we actually need out here fighting for body positivity. Not fat acceptance, but body positivity and understanding who you are and how you were made, and that it's, there's nothing wrong with being who you are and who you were born as, but at the same time understanding that there's a difference between body positivity and this and these types of things, and then just lack of self-respect when it comes to being out of shape and obese. She is obviously not. She's one of the best rugby players in the world and complete badass, and I have the utmost respect for her. And then she posted this on TikTok, which it's kind of heartbreaking to watch. This was actually back in 2022, so it's not a new video. So it's not like this is a new thing that she's dealing with, but it's the first time that we've seen her dealing with this. So here.
For a second, as you can probably tell, I've been crying a little bit. I always get these comments, but like recently it kind of ramped up. I get comments being called a man and being called masculine and asking if I'm on steroids. There will always be negative people out there, and they put women in a box, and they think of women should be fragile and petite and quiet and meek, but that's not the case. Women can be strong, and they can have broad shoulders, and they can take up space, and they can be big. I think I'm getting emotional because I feel very passionate about this. Don't let anybody try to define or dictate how you feel about yourself. You get to decide that. I feel feminine, so I am feminine, and I believe that. I want you all to know that even me, probably one of the most confident people around, has problems sometimes, but I'm not going to let insecure, sad people online dictate who I am, because I know, and they're living a very sad life, and I feel bad for them. keep shining, keep being you. And remember, your body is perfect. Big, small, tall, short. Whatever body you're in, that's the body of a woman. I'm going to be
See, and this is what we always hear, right? This is what so many people in the keep males out of female sports crowd always say, that it doesn't matter the body you're in. That's not what dictates whether you're a man or a woman. It's biology. And so if you are not conventionally what people see as attractive, and I'm not saying this about her, I actually think there's some other pictures of her online where she looks absolutely gorgeous. So I'm not saying this about her, but if there's stuff out there where you're not conventionally what people see as like a supermodel gorgeous person, it doesn't mean you're not any less of a woman. And so it's really frustrating to see, like I said, a lot of these comments on this post where it's just people wanting to claim that this is a dude. And if you actually went and looked, a quick Google search of this person's name, I mean, it's on this post, right? A quick Google search of who this person is would tell you that this is a biological female. So why are you posting that you think this is a dude if it's clear that this person is not? How does that help your cause? It doesn't. And it is really, like I said, it's encouraging to see some people. Let me see. I can go into a few quotes, I think. Kimberly is right. Men and women come in all varieties. Some men are ultra masculine, some women are ultra feminine, others aren't. Alona Mar may not be your type, but that doesn't make her any less female. Don't like the gender wars. Don't add to them with these types of replies. Great. I agree with Lauren. I think she's magnificent and is sure a bear broad-shouldered sons, and is sure to bear broad-shouldered sons who will lead nations. It's a good post. There was one post I know where Riley Gaines posted on this as well and noted like the same things, that she herself as a female athlete does not have the traditionally feminine body because she is a female athlete. So again, how can you support female athletes and then at the same notion come out and say and then do these trans investigations like it's going to help your cause at all? Another one. Now, I'm gonna preface this by saying now Lydia was proving a point to people, and I don't necessarily agree with her point completely. And I'll tell you what her point was, but it's nothing against with her posting. So she posted this picture. So it just said, "What do you notice?" And her point. And so I responded. I mean, it's Katie Ledecky, one of the best female athletes in Olympic history, one of the winningest female athletes in Olympic history. And this really is just it's not a great picture of Katie either. And so when I said that, she said it correct. My theory has been for a while now that transmania is especially cruel to women who are extremely talented like she is, and is also somewhat plain like she is. I agree with that, a little bit of that premise. But here's what I will note. And somebody said this to me before. It said, well, when I was talking about Alona online, somebody said, well, because of trans people, we just can't tell these days, so you can't really blame us. And of course I can blame you. Of course I can blame you for not doing your homework and instead just assuming something about somebody online based on the way that they look. You are assuming that somebody is a male simply by the way that they look, because they are not stereotypically masculine or feminine based on the way that they look. You can't blame trans people because you don't take the time to actually figure out if the person is male or female before you start making fun of them online. You can't blame trans people for those issues. Now I get where you're coming from, but this is like basic common courtesy. And again, it really proves you wrong. It really proves that you don't have any interest in the fact and the fact that people, even after they learn that these are actual female athletes, don't delete their tweets. They're not deleting their tweets even though that they know that they're wrong. That doesn't make any sense. Like, if I did something and I felt it was a shitty thing to do, I'm probably going to delete that post, because it's pretty shitty to make somebody feel like that. Whether I've apologized in other tweets, it's not on that post, I would delete that tweet. And like I said, you can't just like blame trans people for judging people by the way that they look. Because that's what you're doing. You're just looking at somebody, you're judging them, and then you're attacking them for it. And somebody says that's not an attack, and it's like, it is an attack. And people that have said this are people that have been I've been cool with a lot of these people and thought that they were friends of mine, but then they say they blame trans people for just living their lives, for their mistakes of just and really, again, this has been happening for a lot longer than this, like, trans has ever been popular. I mean, I remember growing up in the 90s and remembering that a masculine looking woman was called a man. Like, I remember this early in the 90s. So it's like, this isn't new. You can't just blame this trans craze on this because it's always been like this. And it's amazing because there's so many female athletes out there that I've seen in the past getting these transvestigations on. And it's not just in and look, I even said this. So this is actually, so if you take a cross section, this is Katie Ledecky, not after she just competed. She's actually I think she's fairly cute. She's a normal looking woman, and people are going after her because this is what she looked like after she got out of the water, after she got finished competing. It's downright mean to start to claim people like Katie and Alona are males because of the way that they look. It's mean. And people just want to get their clicks online. And that's what it's about. And really the same. So other people, Terrible as well, she did the same thing later on. And it's not even just about the athletes. And actually, one second. So I do want to thank LS420 Stoner. Thank you so much for the super chat that says, I'm in a deep relationship with a trans woman and she means the world to me. However, got any advice or words of encouragement any words of encouragement I can give her? Just live your life. Don't care about what other people think. Listen, I will tell you over and over and over again that if you're online like I am, and the internet does take its toll on my mental state sometimes, but if you're constantly online, just remember that that is not real life. What happens online, it's just that. It's what happens online. People, when you're in real life, when I'm in real life, like, these things don't really come up. When I'm not online, like, there's times where I think, like, if I just if I just turned off social media, I wouldn't have to worry about, like, any of this stuff. Trans stuff would not even hit the radar, if I was not perpetually online. So I would say be confident in yourself, be yourself, and just do what's right for you. As long as they're an adult, they have the right to do what they want and be happy as an individual. Everybody deserves the right to be happy. And I think that you have to have a lot of just respect yourself, love yourself. Understand that you're also your own critic. So if you are struggling with the way that you look or how you feel, understand that you're your own critic. And look, I'm the same way. I look at I take pictures, right? And I'll look at pictures, and there's a lot of times where I don't like the way that I look in pictures or anything like that. And my friends will always be like, "What are you talking about? You look great." All this stuff, like, and then there's that same insecurity as if it's the truth or if it's not. But I'll tell you that just be comfortable with who you are. Like, look, there's a lot of things that if you are comfortable with who you are and the way that you present yourself to society, and you don't worry about those things, the rest of the people, nobody else matters. Okay? Everybody else just fades away, and you start to realize that most people aren't looking at you anyways. Like I said, you're your own critic. So that's what I would say. But again, it's not even about, and even this story honestly should be a white pill for all trans people, really, when you look at it, because you have so many people out here attacking biological women thinking that they are men. And so at the same time, it's like, so you don't actually know if you're looking at a trans woman or a woman. Yes, in a lot of when it comes down to it, like, a lot of these things end up hurting trans women, or they end up hurting women and detransitioners more than even the actual trans women, because everybody's so caught up in who's trans and who's not trans. And again, like I said, it's not even the athletes in these Olympic Games. Proven point. This is the first lady. Oh wait, let me see. There it is. This is the First Lady of France, Brigitte Macron. She's 71 years old. She's the mother of 3. And now they're claiming that she was born male because she's not conventionally attractive. And I mean, they're also so apparently she was his teacher or something like this. Like the age difference is a different story. It's a little bit weird. Okay, I get that. The age difference, like she's 71. I think is he in his 30s or 40s? I don't exactly know how old he is, but they married when he was 30 years old. She was married prior to them getting together. So I think from what I've seen is she was his teacher and they connected later in life. And I've seen this happen a few times in different areas as well. But like this only helps the trans activist narrative. And to the people who are trying to say that Brigitte Macron is a biological male, well, here's her daughter who literally looks just like her. Like you would think that this was just a younger picture of Brigitte Macron. No, they look exactly the same. With a little Google search of this, and this isn't even new. Like this isn't new. It's kind of like the Michelle Obama stuff. It's not new. It's just people want to be edgy and have these weird conspiracy theories and about people being trans. But again, doesn't that just prove doesn't that just prove like your side wrong? Like, doesn't that prove like that you can't actually tell? Like, if you're erroneously claiming that biological females are males, that doesn't seem helpful to your cause. I mean, here's another picture of her and her daughter together. They look exactly the same. And this interview, let me see what was this? Oh, this was done in March. So but this is nothing new. This is nothing new. They've tried to claim that she's male for a very long time. This actual article right here was about her daughter speaking up about it, and she actually, so Brigitte Macron actually sued people that were trying to spread this rumor that she was male. But again, it doesn't help your cause. Now, I do have, let's just say this, I have a little less sympathy for the wife of a politician, but it still doesn't help your cause. Like, do you think you're gonna pass any legislation against trans people in France if you're taking shots like this? No, I don't think so. I don't think you're gonna win people over this way. Yeah, I agree with that, Robbie. So Robbie says, remember, it's just a small minority of loud, entitled trans people making life miserable. Yeah. And that's really what you gotta remember. But it, like, to think that there's that many trans people out there that, like, with the way that being trans is celebrated, don't you think that the president of France would be like celebrating that his wife is trans? Wouldn't you think that it would be plastered? And that's the other thing with like the Olympics. Don't you think that it would have been the biggest controversy before this So apparently there are two boxers who have DSD conditions, so intersex conditions, that were born female looking, but have XY chromosomes and probably another four. Like there's a number of DSD conditions out there, so it's just unclear. But they have a combination of XY something else chromosomes, right? So DSD is not the same as trans. I've seen that confused a lot today as well. DSD is a completely different thing than trans. Person's born with a condition that they didn't choose, which sex they present as. And actually, when you look at all the trans legislation out there in every state, they exclude DSD conditions from any of their bans. So if you are a technical male, have XXY, XY, or any type of stuff like that, and it's not gender dysphoria the reason why you're taking hormones, then it's excluded. Same with hormones and surgery. You can have hormones and surgery. You can have surgery if you have a DSD condition to remove one of the sets of genitalia or sexual reproductive organs. So I'm not going to get too deep into DSD conditions because, like I said, I think there's like 23 different types of DSD conditions. So that'd be a whole show in of itself. But that's been confusing. And apparently there's two people with DSD conditions that are playing, that are boxing, which I actually feel I feel really bad for people with DSD conditions because they are being lumped in with a lot of the trans people out there. But at the same time, they have higher levels of testosterone, and I don't think it's fair for them to also compete with females. So I don't know where we go with that. But they are technically male, but they're not really men. It's one of those middle ground gray areas that's confusing to a lot of people. But when you look at other sports, swimming, for example, swimming's clear. Katie Ledecky is not a man. Katie Ledecky, like I showed, she's a normal looking young woman. Actually, I don't even know how young she is. She might even be my age. I don't know. Swimming's weird because they can compete older and body doesn't break down as much. But she's one of the most winningest female athletes in the world, and so but any of them, you would have heard at the Olympic qualifier that there was a male competing in female sports on the US team, and it would have been this major controversy 3 months ago before the Olympics even started. And so it's not even right to even claim that anybody, even especially on the US team, was trans. And there are trans people competing, but there's actually one trans man who's competing as a female that hasn't started testosterone. There's also there's also two non-binary people who go by trans, but neither one of them has started taking testosterone either. So needless to say, there's no trans women, actual trans women competing in these Olympic Games. And that is exactly what, like specifically what the Daily Mail had said about this. Trans women specifically, not people that were born presenting female and have DSD conditions, intersex conditions. Now let's talk a little bit about the opening ceremony. Now, I'm not going to play any of the opening ceremony because people are getting copyright strikes because they already took it down because it did this. There were a lot of displays that were very much mockery. They were using drag queens to create, as you see, the Last Supper. I don't understand why they have an overweight woman celebrating the best athletes in the world anyways. It's also really concerning when you see that this person right here in black, there's an image of him with his testicles hanging out. But let's take a second though and say, like, what makes you think that it is appropriate, especially for the Olympic Games? One, what does drag have to do with the Olympic Games? I don't know. I think it's just they basically, in this opening ceremony, they offended like 75% of the world's population. Because remember, there's a lot of countries there that are Islamic countries. And as Blair White pointed out, they would never, ever make fun or depict the Prophet Muhammad in drag, right? I mean, the French know this better than anybody. Look what happened with Charlie Hebdo when they depicted Muhammad in their cartoon. There was a terrorist attack on their organization. The reason why they do this to Christians is because Christianity is a religion of peace, and they will take this stuff. There's nothing that they're not going to be violent because of this, because they depicted the Last Supper. They will be outraged about it, yes. And it is outrageous. I'm not much for the words blasphemy, but it is blasphemy. Clear as day, right? And it's clearly that you take something that many people, that Christians view as sinful, take that sin and mix it with their religion is like a slap in the face. It's pretty bad. And and people are saying, oh, this was something else, The organizers said they didn't mean to offend. They were trying to be inclusive of everybody. So they basically confirmed that they were doing the Last Supper. And also, they also had the pale horse, which in the book of Revelations is, I believe they said, is the horse of death. So there was a multitude of Christian imagery on display here. So it's bad. But we're going to move on because we have about 15 minutes. We're going to move on to Kamala Harris in the presidential election. Now, I'm going to play this clip real quick just to remind you why Kamala Harris didn't receive a single vote in the 2020 primaries.
Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Senator.
Yeah. So that is basically the speech that got her taken down. Now I'm going to be in a place I'm hopefully get to talk with Tulsi this weekend. But that speech right there, that is what took her down. She claims to be this, nobody should be locked up for smoking marijuana. She locked up more than anybody. Well, probably more than anybody as the Attorney General of California. Yeah. So I just, it's interesting to see people clamoring and forgetting her record and why she has still to this day never received a single vote in a presidential primary, yet now she is anointed the candidate for the Democrats. So here's another thing that it would be a shame if this one went viral, and if it would be a shame if you showed all the 18 to 24-year-olds in your lives what she actually thinks of you, even as she tries to gain their vote because they make up such a vast majority of Democrat voters. Here.
And it's a specific phase of life. Remember, age is more than a chronological fact. What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid. That is why we put them in dormitories and they have a resident assistant. They make really bad decisions. And it's a specific phase of life. Remember,
it'd be really sad if you hear this that going around. And let's just talk about her communist past. I guess her dad was an avowed communist, but let's just talk about her equity for a second, right? Her idea of equity. Let's listen to this clip.
Same place. And since we didn't start in the same place, some folks might need more. Equitable distribution. Giving resources based on equity, understanding that we fight for equality, but we also need to fight for equity, understanding not everyone starts out at the same place. So there's a big difference between equality and equity. Equality suggests often everybody should get the same thing. Well, that often assumes everybody started out in the same place, as opposed to equity, which is everyone should end up in the same place. And if you then understand not everybody started out in the same place, you understand some people need more. So we all end up in the same place, right? We are proud of the fact that equity is one of our guiding principles. Proud of the fact that we understand equality is important, but not everybody starts out on the same base. We see that people in our country are having an experience that is not equal. So when we talk about the work we are doing here together, it is recognizing that and being guided by this principle of what we must do in the spirit and in the interest of equity.
So as you see this person post, equitable distribution, which means that you give more to one group based on immutable characteristics such as race, sex, sexual identity, immutable characteristics. As this person also says, marks from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. This is not just socialism. This is communism. Equity is based specifically on communist theory. Our system is built that no matter who you are, you have the equal opportunity. When she says that it's not necessarily just equality, it's not just equal opportunity, it is that everybody doesn't always start at the same place, but we all end up at the same place. You know what happens when we all end up at the same place? It's what happens in every communist nation. We all end up poor. Look at Venezuela. We all end up poor because they take from people that work hard to give to people that don't work hard. Because when you don't have equal output, but you're still trying to get to equal return, nobody is going to work hard. So I always kind of say this. So if you've ever listened to me talk about the difference between anarchy and communism, and where my political views are actually pretty close to anarchy, because anarchy is based on full individualism without government interference. You live based on whatever you can provide. Communism has the fatal flaw that it is what's good for what's best for the greater good. So everybody works together for the greater good and everything's equally distributed amongst everybody. But what happens? What is the fatal flaw there? When one person doesn't pull their weight, then you need an authoritarian figure to make them either pull their weight or force others to produce more than they're capable of, to provide for that person that's not pulling their weight. Whereas individual anarchy, if a person's not pulling their weight, somebody else will step in and do it, and that person kind of, they'll either perish, or the voluntary system comes to play, and that the voluntary charitable system comes in to take over for that person. But it's all based on voluntary exchanges, not forcible exchanges for the greater good. Kamala wants to take away from people because she sees them as privileged, and give to people who may not have the same work ethic, and give to people who she sees as less than. This is the fatal flaw of communism in general. And this is why we must never move down to communism and socialism. Because again, I mentioned Venezuela, and I'm not sure we're going to get to that election today, but that election that happened yesterday shows you a lot of stuff as to why we never give up our guns. Because that's the first stage. People in Venezuela gave up their guns, and they haven't had a fair election since. And this election in Venezuela was not fair yesterday. So sorry about going off on that tangent, but I do have that, but it doesn't look like I'm probably not going to get to that here today. But go look and pay attention to what's happening in Venezuela, because if we don't, and we elect Marxist like Harris into office, that's where we're heading. Remember, I do want to point this out as we continue in this, and I go into this rant. The average empire lasts 250 years. The United States has been around for 249 years. So we are right there at the precipice of where the average empire fails. We are right there. There's a lot of things that can go wrong in this system. But let's talk about now what's happening in this whole thing, because you see the title of this is White Folk for Kamala, and how that's not racist, I don't know. But first thing I want to point out, let's talk about Joy Reid for a second. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how the left somehow will say that diversity, equity, and inclusion are good things, that we should strive to be more, DEI is a good thing. But then somehow, when you say that Kamala Harris was a DEI hire, you're deemed a racist and a sexist. How can it be both at the same time? It can't. If diversity, equity, and inclusion is a good thing, then how is it a bad thing that she's a DEI hire? I've seen people actually admit that she's a DEI hire and say that, hey, it's a good thing. But let's listen to Joy in her own words.
Are you committed to naming a Black woman as your vice presidential running mate? What makes this so ugly is that it reveals a truth that is clearly broadly held within Republican circles. That white men, by definition, when they have a job, earned it and deserve it. And anybody but a white man is a DEI hire. Are you committed to naming a Black woman as your vice presidential running mate?
So she was demanding in 2020 that Joe Biden hire, specifically name a Black woman, that he wouldn't even consider anybody but a Black woman. And now in 2024, we're starting to say that DEI hires are wrong. that DEI is not beneficial, that DEI, like meritocracy, is the way to go. Like, she's trying to play both sides of the coin, and this is the way that the left is doing it. But let's look even further at this. If you haven't seen this one, oh boy. So, over the last few days, there have been white women, this Zoom call, which was white women for Kamala. And then there's white boys for Kamala. And think about this. They are completely and utterly racist. Like, this is racism, right? Let's talk about this. This is all very clear racism, right? So if this was white women for Trump, or white dudes for Trump, this would be considered white supremacy by the left. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Brad's on point. The awful AWFL, affluent white female liberals, are the worst, and they're some of the worst racists out there, because they clearly think that they are better than black people and other minorities. Watch.
Ariel Fodor, affectionately known as Mrs. Frazzle to her combined audience of over 1.5 million followers, is here to help gentle parent us through this election.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I am so honored to speak today. I am like shaking to just be among such incredible company. We are here because, as if you were here earlier, you've heard BIPOC women have tapped us in as white women to step up, listen, and get involved this election season. This is a really important time, and we all need to use our voices and influence for the greater good. No matter who you are all influencers in some way. So tonight, I'm going to share some do's and don'ts for getting involved in politics online and navigating the toxicity that comes with it. And spoiler alert, as much as the toxicity can come from the outside, it can come from us too. So first, don't isolate yourself. We can do our best work when we're in community together like we are tonight, because the toxic feels smaller when we support each other. But don't make it about yourself. As white women, we need to use our privilege to make positive changes. If you find yourself talking over or speaking for BIPOC individuals, or God forbid, correcting them, just take a beat. And
just listen to that for a second. Let me rewind that. This is quote, as white women, we need to use our privilege. Literally saying, using the term, did I say something on this? I might have. To say that you are privileged, you need to use your privilege to help the black person. That means that you think that you are better than that person. Listen.
You find yourself talking over or speaking for BIPOC individuals, or God forbid, correcting them, just take a beat. And instead, we can put our listening ears on. So do learn from and amplify the voices of those who have been historically marginalized, and use the privilege you have in order to push for systemic change. As white people, we have a lot to learn and unlearn. So do check your blind spots. You are responsible for your algorithm, believe it or not.
That is so bad. And I do wonder, and this is actually, it was somebody I know, Shamika Michelle, who pointed out, like, I do wonder what these people would say to a black conservative. But this whole notion of use your privilege for good is a notion that you think that you are better than somebody, that you think that you are put on a different level. I mean, the way that she, as white people, I've never said that phrase in my life as a white person. I've never said that in my life. There absolutely is a white savior complex that happens among these liberals, and it's so interesting to watch. And it's like you watch these people speak, and it's like I just can't with it anymore. Just can't. It's so, like, you remember, you know how they always talk about, like, they always point out the diversity and everything like that. Like, the fact that they are even saying, like, if you don't vote for Kamala Harris if you don't vote for her, you're sexist and racist. The fact that you're even pointing out her race and her sex, and that she is not just a normal candidate, shows that you are racist and sexist. I honestly don't care that Kamala Harris is a black woman. And I don't care. I care more that she's a communist than I could even give 2 fucks about her sex and her race. They make absolutely no difference to me. Like, first female president, I don't care. That's the way that it should be. The way that they got it, they went so bad away from, judging people by the content of their character rather than their skin color. Like, it's so much different. It's like you have to judge people to the left, to the woke left. You have to judge people based off of their race and their sex before anything else. And I will say their sexuality before anything else. There is this oppression Olympics that comes with it, right? Like, I don't care. I think that's the way it should be. I don't care. I care more that, again, you're a communist. But I digress. I just want somebody who's qualified. I want somebody who holds my values. And I would rather vote for Kim Klacik for president than Kamala Harris. If it came down to black women, I would say, be like, okay, let's go with Kim Klacik. I don't care. I don't care about your sex or your race. I just want the person that holds my values. And I'm not sexist or racist or anything else for saying that. But yeah. And then, we can go even more into this. We're right at the top. We're at the top of the hour, but let's talk about this for a second. After the protests, the pro-Palestinian protests in DC last week, during Netanyahu's speech to Congress, she came out and condemned the protesters, the unpatriotic protesters, and dangerous hate-fueled rhetoric. Listen to this real quick, though. I condemn any individuals associating with the brutal terrorist organization Hamas, which has vowed to annihilate the state of Israel and kill Jews. March 16th, Kamala Harris' stepdaughter, Ella Emhoff, publicly raised money for a relief group that allegedly tied to October 7th terrorist attacks on Israel by Hamas. So that was the second time that Kamala Harris's stepdaughter was caught fundraising to help Hamas. Because again, this $8 million that went to Gaza, remember, anything that goes in and out of Gaza goes straight to Hamas. Any aid that goes to Gaza goes to Hamas. So her stepdaughter raised $8 million to aid Hamas. So basically, when she's condemning them, anybody associated with them, she's condemning her stepdaughter, who she is actually pretty close to. Like, there's pictures of them and stuff together. So she's together. This should be a bigger issue than what it was ever made out to be. Another way that the left has become just racist, right? So AJ Delgado. So Donald Trump's, I'm not going to play the full video because we're cruising through some of these stories. I'm running against a low IQ individual, her. I'm not even talking about him, her. I got a low IQ individual. AJ Delgado says, everyone realizes this is race-based, right? Because look, there's no possible way you can call someone who passed the bar exam, was successful attorney, becomes successful, low IQ. It's code for black at this point. Wait. As I said, wait. If you think that somebody's saying that somebody is low IQ and you automatically go to race, you might be the racist. You're the one bringing race into this. Would you bring race into it if he had said that Joe Biden is low IQ? If he had said anybody else that had passed the bar exam was low IQ, but it wasn't a minority? No. If it was a white person, you wouldn't say that this was race-based. No, you're the one bringing race into it. You may be the racist. And then if you don't hate the media enough, after all of this, here's Axios, where it said Harris appointed as border czar. This is back in when Harris was appointed, and I think in 2021 was appointed as border czar. Then, like this week, Trump campaign Republicans repeated with the border czar title, which she never actually had, but you're the ones that gave it to her. You don't hate the media enough. Oh. You don't hate the media enough when they say Donald Trump may have not been shot after all this week. Like, now Newsweek is pushing the conspiracy theory that Donald Trump didn't actually get hit by a bullet. You don't hate the media enough. Good thing, though, the FBI came out and clarified and said he was hit and it wasn't shrapnel. And again, they are completely lying to you. Kamala Harris talking about Project 2025.
2025 is a plan to return America to a dark past. Donald Trump and his extreme allies want to take our nation back to failed trickle-down economic policies.
Okay, trickle-down economics is not anything that we've ever had. And it's a lie tactic that they use. Let me explain trickle-down economics real quick before I play this other clip. Trickle-down economics means that you give money to the most wealthy individuals and then in hopes that they will spread it throughout. No. What we do is we cut taxes on everybody and know that rich people are going to spend more money just as everybody spends more money because everybody has more money in their pockets. People will get raises, and it always ends up that when we cut taxes, we always see record revenues. Trump administration had record revenues when we cut taxes. The problem was that Congress spent, like they always do, an exorbitant amount. So they erased all those record revenues that we had. So the Biden administration hasn't done anything better. The Biden administration has been spending like drunk sailors too, and it's been bad, but we haven't had the revenue because they raised taxes. And here is actually here.
Who are you? What do you do?
I am director of Project 2025.
It's you. I thought it was Trump.
You know, it's not Trump. No, this has nothing to do with Trump. This, you know, was stood up years ago, actually, in 2022. But you know, I'll tell you, probably the scariest part people are going to learn about Project 2025 is that many of us were former Democrats. I know this is breaking all kind of news.
See? Straight from the horse's mouth. Now, nobody's going to believe that because they're going to say he's just lying for Trump and wants to cover it up. But no. Project 2025 is not Trump's plan.
Who are you? What do you do?
I am director.
It's not Trump's plan. It is the Heritage Foundation. It is a think tank white paper that all think tanks put out these policy proposals and they hope that the president takes a couple of them. It's not Trump's plan. But they will fearmonger and lie and lie and lie, and that's all we're gonna see is either call you names, call you racist or sexist because you're voting Republican, or you hate all this stuff because of, you know, or they're gonna say stuff about, you know, lie about Project 25. It's all lies. So yeah. But with that, we're about 10 minutes. Oh, actually, we're over. We're 11 minutes over. I want to thank everybody for joining today. I did want to talk about Venezuela, but so go watch and see what's happening in Venezuela and why we should never give up our guns. How in just one generation, the world can change into a dictatorship. And go see what's happening in Venezuela and pray for the Venezuelan people because they're starting to rise up against these unfair elections there. Again, if you haven't already, make sure you click that like and subscribe button. Follow me across all social media platforms, and I will see you next time.